Hello there, and welcome back to episode number 8 of In the Division, winning the division, I should say. And I'm your host, Ryan Smith, alongside former NFL tight end and Florida tight end, University of Florida, Ben Troupe. This is Winning the Division, episode number 8. Well, let's get right into it, Ben. Your top performers, players of the week, and your not so players or players of the week. What do you got for us?
Well, my top performers of the week. I'm gonna go with two teams instead of just. I'm gonna go with the Bucks and I'm gonna go with the Lions. I mean, the thing about this Buccaneers team, they dropped a 50 piece on the Saints. Now this was a back and forth affair at first. I think the Bucks was up like 17-0. Then I think the Saints came back, and then next thing you know, I'm like 51. Like, where did this? Because usually, I was looking forward to the Marshawn Lattimore. Mike Evans. They've had a nice little back and forth over the years, but I saw this being a better game than it ended up being. But 51-27, that's a beatdown, and that's the Bucks on the road. They beat the brakes. And if you go back to certain games, man, you've had some really heated moments throughout this rivalry. But I would go with my Bucks. My second unit is, oh my God, the Lions. Okay, the Lions embarrassed the Cowboys. Like, I thought that the Lions were going to win the game, because obviously the Dallas Cowboys are the walking wounded right now. No Marcus Lawrence, no Michael Parsons. Ezekiel Elliott still plays for the Cowboys. I know it don't seem like it, but he does. Okay. And I didn't see it going the way it did. I knew it was going to be a long day when they got the first interception on the first drive, because come on, Dak, you got to see that. But the Lions, they went out there and they had their way from the opening kickoff. It was not a game. And I think what makes the Lions team dangerous is they play in the mode of Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is a hard-nosed coach, just like he is the heart and soul of Detroit, like the city. Lunch pail type people, they finna go out there and get it done. And my not so is the Cowboys. For this reason, it's something about the Cowboys, Smitty, that I'm at fault, because I am not a Cowboys fan. I am not a Cowboys enthusiast. I cannot stand the Cowboys. But why is it I keep believing this Cowboys hype, Jerry Jones hype, and Jerry Jones, side note, whatever that reporter was, or radio host, or local radio host that they got threatened by Jerry Jones. Number one, keep doing your job, sir. And I'm gonna repeat the sentiments of A1 Shannon Sharp. I despise that kind of stuff coming from Jerry Jones. When people in power try to use their power to come at people who are not, like you try to use your power to hurt the least among us or not. They're not weak, but you're trying to use your power, prestige, money, and influence. I ain't with that. I'm not. Because Jerry Jones, look. You are the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. You want all the credit and none of the blame. The young man is asking you about what is not happening right now. And if you got players that are good enough on the bench that's not playing, why aren't you playing them? But the Dallas Cowboys, because like I said, with a division that we thought was going to be the Eagles to win, and maybe Dallas in number 2 right now with the Commanders in control, the entire Dallas Cowboys team need to take a strong look in the mirror. Because that star on the side of your helmet, that is a huge brand. But the product on the field is what people are paying to see. And right now, that product is not selling.
Well, my players of the week, the Detroit Lions, as you said, hard to be impressed with Jared Goff and that entire unit. 300 tutties, or 3 touchdowns, 315 yards passing. David Montgomery added 2 touchdowns himself on the ground after a fresh payday as well for David Montgomery. So they're clicking on all cylinders right now. And as you mentioned, the Dallas Cowboys, America's team by who standards anyway, but there's such a slacking there by the Detroit Lions. A complete game, as Dan Campbell said, their best game of the season to date, all 4 phases. We'll get into the Agent Hutchinson news in a little bit. Sad to see him go down, obviously, with the tibia injury, but they'll bounce back. They'll rebound. They have a good enough depth to withstand this. Obviously, you can't replace Hutchinson, but they're going to have the ability to at least bring somebody in to maybe get a formidable replacement there. My not-so player of the week is Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills. He is my kicker in my fantasy league. I will put on the record, I lost by 1 point in my league. I will also say that. 47-yard field goal, shanked it, not even close. Extra point missed as well. I don't want to say he has the yips because I don't think that's the case, but he's been really struggling. And he did not cost the Bills the game. The Bills did win by a field goal, 23-20, over the Jets on Monday Night Football the other night. But he could have. It very well could have if that Aaron Rodgers pass at the end of the game maybe falls another way. They go to overtime. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers had the Hail Mary too, which is, we can talk about that later too. But so many things happened in Week 6 as we get into kind of our top performances for the next 15 minutes or so. And then we will actually be bringing on a guest right in about 15 minutes time. This just breaking here. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to come on today or another time. So we will have a guest for you in about 15 minutes. We'll say who he is at that time. But Ben,
and I was trying not to say this. My not player of the week is Will Levis for all the reasons. 16 of 27, 95 yards, 16 of 27. You threw the ball 27 times. You completed 16 for 95 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 pick. Do you know how hard that is to throw the ball that many times? But you know why he's not my player of the week? Calvin Ridley. 0 catches, 0 yards, 0 impact, and it's not his fault. He was very, very frustrated after the game.
I'd say he threw a tantrum. Yes, he did.
16 to 27, Smitty. 95 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Oh, and the Colts are still winning. You know why? Because Anthony Richardson, they still got Joe Flacco. We're going to see how that situation turns out.
Yeah, Goff missed 7 passes for the Lions. He was 18 of 25. So, I mean, some players just do it well, and some players not as well. So let's get into Week 6 though as a whole before we bring our guest on in about 15 minutes. What are some things that stuck out to you about Week 6 as a whole, games that you wanted to highlight? Where did you want to start, and we can kind of build off from there? What were some of your takeaways from Week 6?
Well, what stood out to me is, I think a quarterback play is definitely picking up when you start talking about the Packers, right? The Packers and the Cardinals. I'm looking at the way Love is playing. He's really come off that injury well. He's really, really playing well. You mentioned the Bills, right? The difference in the Bills and the Jets this week, the difference in the Bills and the Jets was quarterback play. When you need a play to be made, Josh Allen's going to make it. And when a play is not made, Aaron Rodgers literally blames it on Mike Williams. And I'm like, I got to ask you this, Smitty. Why are we so – I know why we're so high on Aaron Rodgers. I get it. But do we talk about Aaron Rodgers like he's in his heyday because of what he's already accomplished? Is it because we know he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? Because if you look at how if Aaron Rodgers don't have the Super Bowl or the regular season MVPs, are we judging him on the curb? Yes. But my question to you is, why are we waiting on Aaron Rodgers to be for the Jets what nobody can be for the Jets?
They're the America's team of the East Coast, I guess. People just want the Jets to be good. Joe Namath, Broadway Joe, Cool Joe back in the day. No one's done it since him. People have tried, obviously. Guys from you had Chad Pennington, you had Brett Favre post Green Bay. You had
Mark Sanchez.
Mark Sanchez. You had so many people try to do this. But the Jets are the Jets. As Bill Belichick just said the other night, Woody Johnson has been the owner. He's been this way. He knows, he's been there a long time, and he runs the ship how he runs the ship, and that is what it is when it comes to being a team like the New York Jets. It's hard to fathom, they just
a Super Bowl contender. You think Aaron Rodgers makes the Jets a Super Bowl contender?
Well, let's get into the headline. One of the headlines: Devontae Adams, breaking news, just got traded to the Jets from the Las Vegas Raiders. Conditional 3rd round pick, 4th round pick that could be even a 2nd round pick. I believe was the official conditional 4th round pick could turn into a 2nd round pick. Does this make the Jets a Super Bowl contender just because the Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams has some chemistry? Does that really make them a Super Bowl contender? I don't think so. The defense still has to play to its standard, which they've been playing fine. Let's not get it twisted. They've been playing fine, but the offense still has to pick up a slack.
Yep. This is why I ask this. When we talk about football, right, in general, you go to college, high school, pro, you got to have, in the pros, you got to have a culture, right? And when I say a culture, I mean a winning one, by the way. Jets don't have that. You got to be competitive in your division. Jets don't do that. Jets have not been competitive in that division in a while. That's been, Miami, Buffalo. Jets have moments. And obviously, because since there's no more Bill Belichick and, Tom Brady, who knows what New England's doing. Why is it when he came over, people were like, oh, we got the defense. We got Breece Hall, who you're not even using him right. You got Wilson and all these players. Is Aaron Rodgers, because we know he can make throws and no one can make, are we expecting him, are we putting unrealistic expectations on a player who, let's face it, is in the twilight of his career?
Yes, he is.
Because what would the Jets know about going to Super Bowls? I mean, the fact that Broadway Joe, now they have won one. I mean, my Falcons never won one, so I get that part. But I'm trying to understand the logic, because Brett Favre was in the playoffs, at least made the playoffs when he was with the Jets. Now he threw back across his body, and you know how that ended up. But I'm just saying, why is it we think that Aaron Rodgers, because now, first is Aaron Rodgers making him contender? They ain't doing it. You bring over Devontae Adams, now people right back on again. Do you think Devontae Adams gets them over the top? Because they are 2-4 right now.
I think it remains to be seen. This offense, if they can hit another gear with Devontae Adams, if Aaron can show a little bit of escapability that he showed earlier in his career, I think they have a chance to do that. But I think that's the difference, right? Aaron can complete the passes. Devontae Adams is still a great route runner. He's not as smooth out of his breaks as he once was, but he's still a great route runner and can do some special things on the field. But Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't have that escapability that he once was. His movement says he's 40. His passes are still crisp. They're on the money. That's still vintage Aaron Rodgers. But his escapability, his mobility out of the pocket, that is 40, 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. And that's not going to get it done when you want to go to the Super Bowl. Let's move on. I want to get this in before we have our guests coming on. Falcons, Panthers. You're a Falcons fan. I'm a Panthers fan. Andy Dalton versus Kirk Cousins was the headliner. 38-20 was the final over the Carolina Panthers. Falcons now 4-2 on the season and 1-5 for the Carolina Panthers. Andy Dalton, back-breaking interception. The one near the end, we won't count that one, even though it counts in the stats. But game was it was 28-20, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that range, 27-20, 28-20, somewhere in there.
It was 38-20.
Yeah, well, at the time of that back-breaking interception, it was 28-20, and Panthers were driving. You think they were going to tie the game, and then Andy Dalton threw an absolutely horrific interception, in my opinion, to give the Falcons the ball. And then they used the running game with Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson to kind of salt away the victory there, get the extra touchdown by 2-yard run by Tyler Algier. Kirk Cousins was fine in this game, 225 yards passing, 1 touchdown. But they leaned on the run game. The Carolina Panthers, I thought, dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides. Grady Jarrett did not register a sack. He did not register a pressure. The offensive line for the Carolina Panthers has really been good this season. But both quarterbacks had all day to throw. Neither pass rush did absolutely anything. And so we talked about this the other day offline, but let's get into it just for a little bit here. What is the identity? We talked about this earlier, with the Carolina Panthers. What is the identity? Establish the run and play good defense. That was John Fox. That was Ron Rivera. Maybe a little bit under Matt Rule even. Right now, the Carolina Panthers are the walking wounded of the NFL, along with teams like the Rams, you mentioned a few others, that you cannot field a competitive defense. You can't outscore teams 30-plus points a game when your defense is so wounded. And on the other side, you have some Panther fans like me who are saying, well, talent-wise, it just may not be there. No matter – you can say next man up all you want on defense, but the talent just may not be there at the end of the day. When you have someone coming in for a second string play, have a second string players being played at multiple positions, no matter how many points no matter how good Andy Dalton is or whoever plays quarterback.
The identity of the Panthers right now, right, is a question mark, because we're talking about the Panthers. We grew up we saw just keep pounding, and there's a level of expectation on both sides of the ball that I don't think is there right now. I think when I see the Panthers, I see a team on offense that's trying to figure themselves out as the game goes, hoping that the defense make a play. Because it's something we talked about, Smitty. There was no defensive identity. Yes, you got J.C. Horn, right? But your key, Shaq is gone there. Brown is gone. And obviously, you get rid of your best player in the offseason and Burn. When your best players across the D-line, linebacker, it's like J.C. Horn is a good player. But J.C. Horn is not built to cover for 4 or 5 seconds. You mentioned both quarterbacks just sat in the pocket all day. I don't care how good. I mean, Drake London is a good receiver. Drake London was getting open consistently. He didn't even have 100 yards. But this is how bad it was. They ran a route combination to the right. They got 4 receivers to the right. They got 3 receivers in the tight end. Drake London gets open. They literally just riverside it. They go to the left. They run the exact same, and he gets open again. There was no adjustment. And I think it's something we talked about, the 3-4 versus the 4-3. 3-4 means I got 4 dominant linebackers. Brian Burns was a part of that 3-4. But I think that
no Jadeveon Clowney in this game either.
Yes. I think that what has hurt Carolina the most is their additions haven't been a plus. And it's not that they can't be. It's when you go from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton, you're gonna be more predictable on offense, but you're gonna keep the ball ahead of the chains. You know how Andy Dalton plays. When you got everybody hurt on defense, you're asking guys who weren't looked to be starters now, run a scheme that does not fit their skill set and hoping for the best. Are the Falcons 18 points better than the Panthers? No. But on Sunday, because the 2 things the Panthers can't do, they can't stop people on defense and they can't play from behind. That's not going to work because now if you're playing from behind, that gets rid of the run game. Now we got to go all pass. I like Deontay. But Deontay is not that much different than an Adam Thielen when he got to be a number 1. You need a number 1 that can get open no matter what. That's what number 1s do. They double covered, try to take them out of the game. No. And I think that's the thing about Carolina when I'm watching them is when Carolina listen, let me say this. They are competitive. They don't just lay down. They are competitive. But when you don't got, you're going from Julius Peppers and Luke Kuechly and Thomas. You have players everywhere, like literally. And now Luke Kuechly ran the defense. Like, I got it. What? I got it. Now you don't have that, and that's a no fault. No, there is only one Luke Kuechly, people. By the way, let me just put that out there. But when I watch Carolina, I'm seeing a defense try to figure itself out in a scheme that doesn't fit their skill set and hoping for the best. That doesn't work in the National Football League. You need more of a hybrid. And on offense, you got a good enough running attack. I know y'all get y'all Ricky back. I think Carolina get y'all Ricky running back.
Jonathan Brooks' 21-day window just opened, so yes.
You're going to have to decide what you want to be on offense. Do we want to be ground and pound and open up the passing game, or do we want to be more 50-50? Because that's what I saw this weekend. It wasn't Carolina trying to figure things out. And Coach Canales, may God bless him. He's like, dude, what do we do? Because I don't want to tell my D coordinator, man, we need to do something different. And on offense, it's like a head scratcher, but hey, man, that's why we keep playing. They try to get it together each week.
He's a first-time head coach, and he was learning on the fly. Before we bring in our special guest here in a few minutes, 2 quick final thoughts on this game. Number 1, what did you see from your Atlanta Falcons as a whole from this game? Because obviously you're a Falcons fan. And then number 2, we also talked about this offline the other day. Some people are saying now for a team like the Panthers, we talked about Bryce Young when he got benched, but Panthers are 1-5, season's over. Why aren't the Panthers just going back to Bryce Young at this point? What's the purpose of having Andy Dalton out there? Some people disagree. Andy Dalton gives the team an evaluation of the current roster, and you got to do that with these young guys that they're bringing out there, guys like Jalen Coker, Jadavian Sanders, obviously Jonathan Brooks eventually. Just final thoughts on this game, and then we'll get in to our special guest right when he logs up.
My final thoughts on this game is this Atlanta Falcons defense that is much improved. You mentioned Grady Jarrett didn't have no pressure, no sack. No sack. You could not tell. Why? Because the back end is rock solid. And I'm talking about Bates and company and Simmons. Those dudes, they for sure tacklers. And if you make a mistake, they will make you pay. If you make a mistake, I mean, even AJ Terrell got a pick. I mean, where did that come from? And the thing about the Bryce Young thing is very, very interesting, Smitty. I will say this. Bryce Young means that you, and I hate to say it this way, if Bryce Young comes back in, that means you've given up on the season. Even if you're not, because people are saying, well, dude, you pulled him. Andy Dalton is not playing bad. It's just a team around him is not playing good enough to win. Bryce Young now, week 12, 13, okay. Because at a certain point, Smitty, and I know Panther fans don't want to hear this, you might put him out there because he might be, a trade candidate in the offseason. I'm not saying this is gonna happen.
Right.
But if you put him back in the end of the year and he looks like he did, regardless of the games, you got to be competitive. You got to ask yourself, do we cut our losses? But right now, you don't put Bryce. Bryce Young is a great distraction. He is not the problem. He's a good distraction. He's not the problem. Carolina going to have to figure out who they are because no matter what, Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, they only one player. What about the other 10 on offense? Or what about all 11 on defense? They're going to have to figure that out real quick.
My personal opinion, no inside sourcing, no, nothing on this. My prediction is that he's going to be back in after the Germany game against the New York Giants on November 10th. Then the Panthers have a bye week after that. So 7 games remaining after that for Bryce Young to be back in. That's my official prediction. Obviously, I have no sourcing or insight on that, just me talking smoke. While we're waiting on our guest, you mentioned Brian Burns. Sunday Night Football, the Bengals, took down the Giants 17-7, but you wouldn't know it with Brian Burns playing out of his mind, finally earning that $30 million contract. Joe Burrow had a 48-yard scamper for a touchdown. Brian Burns actually sent Burrow to the medical tent briefly to be evaluated for a concussion, and Burrow did come back in. But Brian Burns had 8 tackles in this game. He had 2 sacks. He was a menace all over the field. This game was – I had to watch it just to kind of see. I thought there was going to be a little bit more scoring than it was, but the Bengals defense, I think, finally stepped up, and we were able to see the Bengals defense of old.
I mean, Brian Burns. Smitty, you know this. Brian Burns is when let me say this the right way. When he decides, he's top 10 in the league rushing the passer, bar none, because he can bend the corner. Like he can bend the corner and he can wreak havoc. You don't get paid $30 million a year when you can't do these things. And Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. If their D-line ever put it together, Dexter Lawrence on the inside, Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau on the outside. But I think the Bengals showed why people still have faith in them, even though they're 2-4, and why people don't have a lot of faith in the Giants because you got Daniel Jones, you got Slayton and those guys. I'm just going to say this. There are things that I will always scratch my head on. And you sat down and said, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley. We're going to go with Daniel Jones. Making those type of decisions are the reason why you're in the position that you're in now. That Brian Burns got his money. But, Smitty, I can say this. You want your money, yes, and you should go out there and earn your money and get your money. But you want to win. When your livelihood is the NFL, I want to win games. Finally, you got out of Carolina, a small media market to the biggest media market in the world, And now you're putting up numbers, but your team ain't playing well. So we'll see what happens. But that scramble for a touchdown for Joe Burrow, that was very impressive. I mean, he was running away. There was nobody in the screen. Like, where was the defense at? But Joe Cool, everybody seemed to be – nobody's getting off the Bengals hype train. They still believe in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. DBs beware, because this dude – I mean, I know everybody want to talk about Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown. You better listen. When you start talking about one of the best in the league to actually do it, I just think for me, when Jamar Chase, I don't think he signed his contract extension, but he's gonna blow the bank up this offseason, no doubt.
Yeah. And while we're waiting on our guest to get on, that Lamar Jackson, Jane Daniels was popcorn viewing now. I know the Commanders lost, but they impressed me. And that's the Panthers' opponent this week. 2 former Panthers on that defense balling out. Frankie Luvu, former Jet standout as well. And then Jeremy Chin on the back end. But Jane Daniels held his own against Lamar Jackson. He reminds me of Lamar Jackson, a smaller version of him. And they put on a show. And I enjoyed what I saw there.
Jaden Daniels is him. I mean, he's they're doing for Jaden Daniels up there in Washington what they did for Lamar Jackson since he's been in Baltimore. They're not making him be something he's not. They're catering to what he does well. Before you can tell a quarterback he has to do this, let's cater to what he does well and what Jaden Daniels does well. He improvises with the football. He does not turn the football over. And once again, I agree with that. He's like a younger version of Lamar. I mean, I like the young man. 24, 35, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'll take that every single day. But I just think that Lamar Jackson, he's already won 2 regular season MVPs. The numbers that he's putting up this season, he's working on MVP number 3. And I get it. He don't care about those type of accolades, but I agree. I mean, 30-23, Commanders 4-2, Ravens 4-2. You got to see the present and the future on the field, up there in Baltimore. Great game. Great game.
And with that, let's bring on our special guest. He is a former University of Florida grad as well. Now ESPN senior NFL writer and insider for ESPN. Let's bring on Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. Jeremy, how's it going?
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me.
And welcome to Winning the Division. This is our 8th episode. We're just about 25 minutes in. I know you only have 15, 20 minutes, so let's just get right into it. Yeah. Ben, I'll let you start since you got the Florida graduate similarity there. I'll let you kind of start and let you and Ben or you and Jeremy kind of talk for a little bit, and I'll get into some questions I have near the end when you're done.
I mean, Jeremy, obviously some blockbuster trades. Devontae Adams, he gets to go back home with his buddy. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers. You talk about Amari Cooper going over to the Bills. Cam Akers going over to the Vikings. Is this going to be a trend now in the NFL to where? Because usually blockbuster trades are quarterbacks going to different teams. Do you see this being a trend moving forward in the NFL to where they'll take a player who's disgruntled and let him move on regardless of the contract?
Yeah, Ben, great to be with you. I still remember you hurdling defenders back in the day of Florida, so good to see you. But I would say yes. I think teams are more aggressive in their trading habits now because if they have a player who is a good player but might want to be elsewhere at this point, or a team's not winning, they see the writing on the wall, they don't draw it out. I think in the old days the same player would be in the same uniform for 15 years and that would just be commonplace. It's just a little different now because teams take more into account the salary cap value, acquiring draft picks. General managers are just more used to making trades now. Like they're on the phone all the time trying to shake these things out. You have aggressive GMs like Howie Roseman in Philadelphia, Andrew Berry in Cleveland. We just saw the deal he did. So it's all about value. And you figure, hey, like if we're sitting at 1-5, we're going to lose Amari Cooper next year. We can get a 3rd-round pick for him now. Let's just do it. So it really just is a value-based thing.
So for those who don't know, Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano put it on a insider kind of latest buzz, what we're hearing every Tuesday morning. Go read that on ESPN.com for yourself. Good viewing there. But I want to get into Deshaun Watson for a second. Is it possible that the Cleveland Browns have to know? I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, Jeremy. Is this an ownership thing where Kevin Stefanski has asked Jimmy Haslam, hey, we need to sit Watson down. He's costing us games. He's a liability right now. But he's like, nope, sorry, I'm the owner. I signed the checks. Not doing it. Is it really that simple? Or is it something that we're not understanding? Is it all money?
I mean, I can't confirm that. I think that's just more a suspicion because of the money involved. And, the owner was aggressive in helping make the Deshaun Watson trade happen 3 years ago. So I just think right now it's an organizational issue where they're saying, hey, we owe him this money regardless. And it's ugly right now, but hopefully he can come out of it, and it's one of those things where I do think the Browns feel like even though they're at 1-5, they're not a terrible team. It's a pretty good roster. The defense hasn't been as good, but they've had a lot of injuries. So, they feel like, hey, maybe we are a few plays away from being 4-2, and I know that's maybe the sunny, optimistic view, but I do sense a little bit of that from Cleveland right now where they're just kind of like, what the heck happened? We're not this bad. They have Nick Chubb coming back. Now Amari Cooper's gone, which Deshaun Watson loses one primary target, but maybe that will help other players step up and he can not press as much, So there are a lot of factors, but it really comes down to just they're resigned to the fate that they are stuck with the money, and he's not tradable, he's not cuttable. So you kind of have to just try to make it work, you know. I think what they could end up doing, this is just more what I would do, is bench him for a few games. Just let Jameis Winston play for maybe 2 or 3 games and promise that you're coming back to Watson, just to give him like a reset, and let him just watch from the sidelines. So
that's what I've been saying with Bryce Young in Carolina. After the Germany game, that's my bold prediction. 7 games remaining. Bryce Young is coming back in, regardless of the record. Regardless, that's my bold prediction. But anyway, Ben, was there another player or something else you want to?
You see, Joe Flacco. You see what he's meant to Indy since he's been under center. Obviously, Anthony Richardson is going to be the guy for the future. People see what's going on with Jaden Daniels with the Commanders. In your opinion, do you think these first-round quarterbacks are thrown out there too early? Because you look at Aaron Rodgers, he got to sit. Phillip Rivers got to sit. Do you think because of the trend they go so high and because they could be C.J. Stroud, you know, they throw them out there? Or do you think it's better for these young guys to come in and hold a clipboard for a little while so they can see how to play the position?
Well, I really think it depends on the situation. You know, I certainly don't think that Jaden Daniels should be holding a clipboard right now with the way he's playing, you know, so he clearly was ready. You know, Drake May and New England, I would have liked to have seen him sit a little longer just because of that model you're talking about. They had a veteran in Jacoby Brissett. You know, that I thought that going in, he probably had to have won a few games to hold off May from coming in. But for him to start week 6 behind a team that's not very good, you know, you would have liked to have seen him gotten a year, considering he's a little bit raw. But he's also been trending upward behind the scenes. So a lot of times if a guy's doing the right things and you kind of know what you have already, and you just need to sort of verify it or confirm it with game action, then it can make sense, you know. But it really does seem to depend on the team, the personnel around the quarterback, supporting cast, coaching staff. Like, those are huge elements here. You know, the Bears smartly had good weapons at wide receiver, but they draft Rome Odunze and then they go trade for Keenan Allen. They go get DeAndre Swift in the backfield. Like, they loaded up so that there would be no excuse for Caleb Williams, that he would be properly supported, you know. So Tennessee with Will Levis is trying to do that. That's what they did this offseason, and he's not taking advantage of it. But it really depends on what the quarterback can do. I think these guys used to get 2, 3, 4 years of an audition. Now it's just much shorter. I think part of that's because of the pressure out there externally from the fans, but it's also because these teams are, you know, they get sick of waiting, but they also maybe 7, 8, 10 games in, they kind of know what they have at that point. How long is a sample size really necessary before you've done a full evaluation? I think that teams are coming to that conclusion a lot sooner than they used to.
Jeremy, a follow-up to that is, I mean, college football to me is all about culture. The best teams got the best culture. Players. How much is culture, you know, that strong of a component in the NFL? Because everybody's pros, because you've been around the league to see what teams do it well and what teams don't. How much you see what's going on in Philly with Coach Sirianni is making more, waves not away from the field than he is on the field. And you see the situation in Jacksonville, they blaming everything on Trevor Lawrence because he got the money, and now he ain't playing well, even though his receivers don't be helping him. How important is culture in the National Football League?
You say culture or coaching?
Culture.
Well, it's been a buzzword I've heard a lot over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's only growing. And I think it's because teams see the value in it and the importance, you know. If you're just going out there and you're rolling the ball out and you don't really have an identity, that can come back and hurt you. Or in the case of a lot of teams that are successful, and you look at the Chiefs for a great example, you know, there's synergy from the head coach or the GM to the owner, Clark Hunt. Everybody's on the same page at all times. There's a flow of organization where Andy Reid's the head of things, but he emboldens his GM to make more decisions, and the owner comes in and provides input but doesn't meddle. And it really starts there. And, if you have a stable ownership and a stable head coaching situation, like, you're going to go a long way. That's going to solve a lot of your problems there. But it's really year by year bringing in the right players and creating a culture that can sort of weather those bad games when you have an ugly loss, which is going to happen to every team, and how you respond, and like all those things matter. But even just the minutia, like the training facility you're in, or your schedule, the kind of rest players get, and recovery and injury prevention and training staff. Like, I think all those little things add up to wins and losses at the end of the day.
Hassan Reddick, we haven't heard much about him. Obviously, he's been sitting out, hasn't played a game this season, losing a lot of money. Personally, I think the Carolina Panthers should give him a call. They have zero pass rush at this point. Former Carolina Panther, I should say. But that's neither here nor there. What are you hearing about Hassan Reddick, his future? Obviously, the Jets giving him an option to explore trade. Do you see a team trading for him at this moment, or is he still going to be missing games and we're not going to be able to see his talent on the field?
Yeah. Teams are looking into it. I know the Lions, because of the Aiden Hutchinson injury, they're at least checking in on it, doing the due diligence there. It's complicated because now he's been out for a long time. What kind of shape is he in? I think he's in good shape from what I've heard. But if you're a new team acquiring him when he's sort of outstayed his welcome in two places now, Philadelphia trading him and then now New York, you wonder about what you're getting, what kind of player you're inheriting, just speaking to that culture point that you mentioned. But proven guy, 12 or more sacks every year. If you're in a situation like Detroit where you already have a strong locker room, maybe you can bring him in and he fits right in. I think you need to have a stable organization to bring somebody in like that. And, Carolina is in such transition right now. I don't know if they want to give up picks to get a player, no matter how badly they need them, So I'm guessing he would go to a contender. But I do think him staying with the Jets is certainly on the table. It sounds like his new agent, Drew Rosenhaus, has been vocal and open about that. And, he's already there. They can try to work something out. But the contract's the major issue. He wants a new deal, and you got to come up with the right money.
Well, the reason I just said that was for the Panthers comment was because it reminded me when the Panthers went and got Stephon Gilmore from New England, and everyone was like, wait, he went to Carolina? Wait, what? And that sort of happened, and obviously that didn't last long, but that's the only reason I mentioned it like that. That obviously did play here in Carolina before. Last one for me, and I think, Ben, you have one more. What is kind of underrated throughout the league this year? What are we not talking about enough? You said culture has obviously been a buzzword, but what's something that around the league that we should be paying attention to that we're not talking about enough?
I would say, it was funny. I was at the NFL owners meetings yesterday, and they mentioned a stat about like 339 field goals have been converted in the first 6 weeks, and like over 20% of them were 50-yarders or above. And that's interesting to me. Like, the game is changing a little bit where these kickers are too good. So, 55, 60-yarders are not a big deal anymore. I think it's changing the way teams look at offensive football and clock management. And, I don't wonder if that's something that it just seems interesting to me, especially with some of the offensive struggles the first 3 or 4 weeks where teams were struggling in the passing game a little bit. You're seeing a heavier run game and you're seeing more field goals. So it's kind of been a throwback year. I think that's been underplayed a little bit in just how things have gone. And then there's just some surprise teams that have still kind of hung under the radar a little bit. But I look at the LA Rams are 1-4. Like, I didn't have that on my bingo card to start the year. I think they'll get healthy and then start to win some games. But yeah, some teams that I thought would be in contention that are clearly not. Cleveland, I thought they'd be better. And they're in a pressure cooker environment there in that market. So it's been tough. But LA's kind of quietly gone under the radar 1-4, they're going to try to have to apply some of their own pressure to try to get themselves out of this hole.
Tua, obviously, he's come out and said he's definitely going to try to continue his career. How many eyes are going to be on Miami, Tua, when he does get back on the field, Jeremy? Because obviously his concussions, when we watch him do his, we seeing things happen that we've never seen. What has been the discussions with the owners? Did his name come up at the owners meeting saying, listen, he's going to play, and obviously all eyes going to be on the NFL and obviously, the Miami Dolphins quarterback?
Yeah, so he didn't come up at the owners' meetings, but it's certainly a topic that's been bubbling under the surface among a lot of teams and people around the league, just trying to get a grasp of when he might come back or what he's going to be able to do, or are the Dolphins going to be out of contention at that point too? They just don't look the same as they did, a year and a half or a year ago. There's just something off a little bit, even when Tua was playing in the first couple games. So you have a team trying to figure out their identity this year, combined with a player that's a massive storyline because of all the concussions he's had in the past. And look, I don't think there's ever any doubt he wanted to play. I know that, from an analytical perspective, ex-players would say that he should retire. But he was always going to speak for himself. I never got the sense that he wanted to sit out. He signed that long-term contract with the Dolphins, hoping to win there. And for a lot of players, that's been part of their identity all their life, is to play football. So it can be hard to walk away. But I don't know. It's still delicate, because everybody's going to wonder when he gets out there, how is he going to protect himself? Can he properly do that? Last year he showed he could play 17 games and did it. But then this year, on the play where he got hurt, he's, going in aggressively toward the goal line. Can he tailor his style of play to truly avoid hits? And can you even do that in the sport at all? Those are just some questions that I'll have going forward.
Ben, before I close it out, go ahead. Before we let Jeremy go ahead.
You said he played. You said Tua played the 17 games. You had the owner meeting. How soon are we gonna hear 18 regular season games?
I don't think it's on the radar immediately, but it's something that most of the owners, I would say, are in favor of because of the monetary value that it brings, the revenue. And I've been surprised at how early the NFL and the NFL Players Union have discussed it. Now, they can't do anything until the CBA is renewed, or you'd have to, create a exception. I don't sense anything happening right now, but it's certainly on the radar for sure on both sides of the coin. This isn't anything that the Players Union is really fighting. I think they'll use it as a negotiating tactic to get more things that they want as a result of giving up that extra game. But if you can do it the right way, we can get that extra bye or create more rest for players. I think they'd be open to that extra game. But it's just, if you try to do 18 games in one bye, that's tough. So that's going to be a sticking point.
Give us walking out the door, Jeremy, last two for me. Give us a bold prediction. I know you do kind of the latest buzz every week, obviously, but kind of crystal balling it the rest of the season. Is there a trade, a transaction, a prediction that you have that might be something that folks might be looking to pay attention to down the line? Maybe something not right now, but something that could be crystallizing down the road and people could be paying attention to.
Well, let's see. I think – the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've been looking hard for a wide receiver. I do think they'll end up making a trade in the next couple of weeks to try to bring somebody in. They need it in the worst way. Look at Mike Williams in New York with the Jets. He's kind of the odd man out there. I could see that being a pairing, So I guess that's my bold prediction. I'm trying to think of I still think I mentioned the Rams. I still think they could make a little run, get themselves out of this hole here. I would say among the bad teams right now, that might be the best one, the best bad team. So, and if we're talking about Carolina, I don't know. I don't know they're going to go back to Bryce. That's going to be interesting. Maybe they will, just because, if they're sitting at 1-7 and there's public pressure, maybe they do it. But it wouldn't shock me if they've just rode with Andy all year. So that's kind of.
Okay. I have to. You brought this up, not me. So let me just ask you this before I ask my last question. You brought this up, not me. Dan Orlovsky, your buddy over there on ESPN, said the other day, I think it was on Get Up or one of those shows, maybe on Sports, and at 1-5, Carolina Panthers season over. Why aren't they playing Bryce Young? That's literally what he said. So what is so can you enlighten us, for the Panther fans like myself who might be watching this? Why aren't they going to go back to is it smart for them to go back to Bryce Young? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Whether the record's 1-7, 1-9, does it 2-8, or is it no? If Andy Dalton's playing good football, it's watchable. He can evaluate everybody on our roster, no matter how bad they're winning or losing. You can actually evaluate talent with Andy Dalton playing the quarterback position, whereas Bryce Young, you could not in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I really think it's going to depend on how the next few weeks go and how Bryce Young has sort of absorbed the benching. Has he taken it the right way? Has he learned from his mistakes? I think that will be part of it, honestly. I don't think they're holding him out necessarily. I just think they're trying to win games and feel like Andy does give them the best chance right now. So I just wouldn't be surprised if that continued. I get the whole argument of hey, you're 1-5 and, just give Bryce another chance. I don't know. You talk to other teams around the league, they wonder if the ship has sailed there, if they're just going to try to move on or try to trade him. I haven't gotten that sense yet in Carolina. So something's going to have to give if you're sitting at 1-8 or 1-9. But I don't know. They've been competitive more so in the last month with Andy. So I think if they can find a way to win a couple games, that will probably keep Bryce on the bench, I would imagine.
Panther fans know my prediction. Whether the Panthers draft 1, 2, 3 doesn't matter. You sold the farm, you build up that defense back up, and you insert Bryce back in 2025 with a veteran quarterback kind of competition. Whether that's Dalton, whether that's somebody else. But anyway, we won't talk about that. Last question. Thank you again, Jeremy Fowler, for coming on, winning the division. Ben, before I let him go, was there anything Florida related you guys wanted to talk about for like 2 minutes? I know it's a NFL podcast, but 2 Florida guys on the podcast, Graham Mertz, I know, out for the year, DJ Lagway time in Gainesville. Is there anything you guys wanted to, get off your chest in 2 minutes, Florida wise? I know where it's an NFL podcast, but
there's 0% chance I can get everything off my chest in 2 minutes with Jeremy. I'm trying to keep things on the up and up, but I will say this, Jeremy, you are in, sports media, obviously being, being in NFL, going around, like what has been your biggest takeaway from what you do for a living every day? Because everybody, let me say, not me, but I can do what Jeremy do. Jeremy, please tell the people what it's like just going around, being able to be an insider for these teams and working for the National Football League like you do. Give some insight.
Yeah, so, in my role at ESPN, I try to wear a lot of different hats and kind of bring value in a lot of different ways. So whether it's, reporting on news around the league, trying to break news, being an insider for shows like SportsCenter, NFL Live. Right now I'm in New Orleans, so I'm doing the Thursday night game tomorrow. I'll be doing the pregame and postgame reporting for that on TV. So, and then I write a lot still. We have notebooks we do every week. I do, a lot of like in-bed locker room stories of like what's going on with certain teams. I like doing those. That requires a lot of, reporting and writing and nuance. And so luckily I get the chance to do a lot of different things, but it's certainly not, I get this question from, fans or people like, hey, do you get into the games for free or do you get, perks, or what's it like being inside the NFL? But it's a job. It's like anything else, right? You're trying to maximize your capacity in your job. It's a fun job, certainly. Pros outweigh the cons, no doubt, but there's a lot involved with it beyond just being, immersed in the sports world. So, but I'm grateful for it.
Well, I think we've kept you past your time, but Jeremy, thank you for coming on, winning the division. All the best down in New Orleans for the game tomorrow night. Have a good call, and we'll talk to you down the road. Thanks for coming on.
For sure. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks, Ben.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Ryan.
All right. Well, that was Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. This is winning the division, where we are going to get some guests who are going to just come on. And like that, it was literally breaking news. It was insider information. He literally texted me as we started recording and said, "Hey, I'm available in like 10 minutes." So that is how quick some of these things can happen, in winning the division in the podcast world, I should say. Ben, before we get into week number 7, as we preview the top games that we have going on, let's get into some news transaction. Actually, before I say that, was there any other games or any other thoughts from week 6 that you wanted to kind of go over? I know we didn't get to a lot of games. We talked to some individual players with Jeremy and some different situations. Was there anything else you wanted to hit on from week 6 as a whole before we move on?
No, I just want to say, man, shout out to you, Smitty, man, for getting getting Jeremy Fowler. Obviously, big admirer of Jeremy and his work and everything that he does. And I like the fact, that's why I asked him about, give us a little insight on what you do. And I kept telling you, Smitty, I said, listen, when we start this podcast, man, it starts out, man, who can we get? It ends up being, who do we want? And the only way you get who you want is by reaching out to these people. So, Jeremy, we appreciate you taking the time. We know the last thing you have is extra time on your hands. We appreciate you giving us some of your time. But no, I think the way he broke down a lot of different nuances of coaches, the owners' meetings, and I do think the 18 games is coming sooner rather than later, because the 17 games, we don't like it, but it is beneficial monetary wise. And like he said, two off weeks, but you got to factor in too, if you got an 18th game, how many more international games does that add? Because there used to be one. Now it's like 4 or 5 a season, but appreciate Jeremy Fowler coming through, Smitty. Appreciate you getting that grab, man. Jeremy Fowler, he one of them ones. So hey man, we 2 for 2 with guests. I'm just saying, and we're gonna keep it going.
Let's get into now those transactions as I was just referring to. Here is some of the latest news around the league as we preview before we get into week number 7. Well, we talked about with Jimmy Fowler, Jets wide receiver Davante Adams. I almost said Raiders. Jets wide receiver Davante Adams expected to play this Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers in his first game as a New York Jet. Malik Neighbors returning to practice for the Giants after missing the last 2 games with a concussion-like symptoms. Giants left tackle Andrew Thomas out for the season with a Liz Frank injury that broke recently. Very big news there for the New York Giants. Cam Akers returns to the Minnesota Vikings via trade. We talked about Amari Cooper going from the Browns to the Bills. And owners approved Tom Brady's bid to become a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, along with his teammate Richard Seymour as well.
Yeah, Richard Seymour. Yeah, former Richard Seymour, they were former teammates with each other. So when they won those first 3 Super Bowls, Richard Seymour was obviously a defensive tackle for the New England Patriots. But shout out to Tom Brady, shout out to Richard Seymour, and shout out, to Mark Davis, the owner, Al Davis, the son of the now Las Vegas Raiders. Listen, Al Davis, for those who don't know, he was always innovative. He always went against the grain. He didn't do what all the other 31 owners did. But shout out to Tom Brady. Listen, minority owner and Richard Seymour, you go from playing to owning a team. That's big time. Shout out to both of those gentlemen.
Some injury news to note for the kicking woes of the Green Bay Packers, injuries and just bad play. They signed Brandon McManus to a 1-year contract there. Jonathan Brooks opened up 21-day window for the Carolina Panthers. Rookie running back, second-round pick from the University of Texas, starts his window to return. Lions defensive end Aiden Hutchinson out for the season with a broken tibia, as we kind of referenced earlier. And then left tackle Andrew Thomas for the New York Giants, as we said, out for the season with a Liz Frank. Any injury news? What do you take away from those transactions?
Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, you're talking about a guy who means, one of the hardest, if not, the heart and soul of that defense. Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. Who's going to be the next domino to fall when you start talking about, because the Detroit Lions, they're not pretenders, they are contenders. Just ask the Dallas Cowboys, right? Those guys find a way to get it done. You're gonna have to replace Aiden Hutchinson because he's the top 5. I think he's the top 5 pass rusher in the National Football League. Has already recorded 5 sacks in 1 game this season. So yeah, is it gonna be Myles Garrett? Is it gonna be Max Crosby? Is there a potential trade you can get for a guy like that? But yeah, Aiden Hutchinson, I think he's already had surgery. I think he's been successful. But hey, Cam Akers back in Minnesota, Aaron Rodgers and Davante. I think Mike Tomlin said, he said I had to prepare for Davante Adams a week ago. Now I got to prepare for when he was with the Raiders. Now I got to prepare for him this week with the Jets. And yes, he will be out there suiting up. They're gonna be able to put him in. So shout out to Davante Adams though, man. But I do feel bad for Antonio Pierce because I do think Davante Adams was a big reason why he got the head coaching job with the Raiders. We'll see what happens.
It seems to be trending that Russell Wilson will be starting versus Davante Adams and the Jets for the Steelers. Speaking of him,
he will.
Let's talk about that.
I don't understand that for this reason. Russell Wilson has not been the same since he left Seattle. We understand that we thought that it was a dumpster fire in Denver, and obviously Bo Nix and Sean Payton are proven, excuse me, that that's not the case. Justin Fields is going 4-2. Right? I'm not understanding why you put Russell Wilson. Now, Mike Tomlin is never going to be questioned by most people because he never had a losing season, won a Super Bowl. Been a long time since he won that Super Bowl. But he does have a Super Bowl ring on his resume. I'm not understanding this really because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Oh, and for people saying, who does Justin Fields' numbers compare to? That would be A1 C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud got 10 touchdowns on the season. Justin Fields got 10 touchdowns in the season. C.J. Stroud got 5 picks. Justin Fields has 1 pick. So I'm telling y'all right now, Justin Fields is going to eventually be the guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think something similar to Jeremy Fowler said about Bryce Young and how he dealt with the benching, they're going to see how does Justin Fields deal with being benched when his play is not the reason why he's being benched. Maybe they want to see if Russell Wilson still got something left in the tank. But I do think that the leash on Russell Wilson is not going to be that long. If he starts showing signs of old Russ, they will put Justin Fields back in. But it doesn't matter if I agree with the decision or not. I just don't understand this decision.
Well, I do know when it comes to Bryce Young, and I have talked to some people about this. Andy Dalton and him have a absolutely wonderful relationship, and I think that is playing big dividends on why Bryce reacted so well to this benching and just the encouragement that you see. You watch the game on Sunday, he's out constantly on the sidelines in Andy's ear, talking with him about the play, he's even talking to the refs with some calls. So Bryce is engaged. He isn't just out there collecting a paycheck, sitting on the sidelines, sulking. Not kind of engaged in the game. He is there, and he is a willing participant in these games. Before we get now to week 7, let's transition now in our time remaining here on Winning the Division, episode number 8, to week number 7 in the National Football League. Not part of our top 5 games. Let's preview Broncos Saints tomorrow night in the Superdome. Jeremy Fowler, as he said, will be on the sidelines for that one. Sean Payton back in the Superdome with the Denver Broncos, and Bo Nix, former Auburn and Oregon Duck, coming to the Superdome to face those New Orleans Saints. 3-3 Broncos, 2-4 New Orleans Saints. Seems like that Carolina Panthers beatdown is a long way ago for these New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr is still out with an oblique injury. Spencer Rattler will be making his second consecutive start. What are you looking for in this ball game, and how do you think it's going to play out?
I'm looking forward to this Saints defense trying to get after Bo Nix. They're going to do all they can to not only spoil this for Sean Payton, but they want to go out there and assert some dominance. When you look, they just got embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Bucks on Sunday. They're trying to get that sour taste out their mouth. Bo Nix has been really, really good. Everybody want to talk about Jaden Daniels, as they should. Everybody want to talk about Caleb Williams, as they should. Bo Nix has been really, really good for a Sean Payton offense that people didn't know what type of identity it was going to have. So I'm looking forward to a really, really good game. I think, Cam Jordan and, Tyrann Mathieu and Marshawn Lattimore and company, they're going to try to make life really, really difficult. I want to see Marshawn Lattimore versus Cortland Sutton. Should be a really, really good matchup, but I do think they're going to probably do a tribute, as they should, to Sean Payton. Playing the tribute before the game, and after that, they're trying to beat him. The only way to have a good time when an old coach or teammate comes back to the old team is to make sure they lose. Love on them before the game and after the game, beat up on them during the game, and make sure they lose the game. I got the Saints trying to get back to a big win against a Broncos team that's been much better than advertised.
I lied. One last thing regarding week 6 before we get into week 7's top 5 games for each of us. This is now the second consecutive week we've had a London game, third game coming up this week. Bears Jaguars. Caleb Williams' coming out party came this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. He played like a grown man. And Trevor Lawrence, you mentioned him with Jeremy Fowler already. It seems like he's getting blamed for everything because he's making the money. And so Caleb Williams, against my Panthers, he obviously looked decently good as well, 300 yards passing. But this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, he took it a whole another level. I still think Jaden Daniels is the front runner for Rookie of the Year, but I think Caleb Williams closes the gap a little bit with that performance this past week against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
If you are a Chicago Bears fan, this is why, you be licking your chops and going crazy. We talk about what Caleb Williams can do. When he takes care of the football, he understands he's got a defense, and he'll definitely give him more opportunities. He can definitely go out there and look the part. No one ever said that Caleb Williams couldn't go out there and get it done. 226 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. I'll take it any day of the week. And I think the fact that Caleb Williams is letting the game come to him, he's not trying to do too much. There was a play that he threw a touchdown pass that he could have really, really got injured, but he kind of leaned into his. He's a smart player. His football IQ is a top notch. But yeah, I do agree. Grown man on Sunday against them Jaguars. And if you are a Chicago fan, you loving it. If you're a Jaguars fan, well, you are looking at being a bottom feeder in the AFC South right now.
Well, let's get into it, Ben, for the rest of our time. Top 5 games to watch week number 7 here in the National Football League. I will start us off. Number 6 on this list. Yes, I said 6 because I'm going to say my 6th game is my toilet bowl game. Here's my toilet bowl game that no one is going to be watching except for that corner TV in your house that you're going to have on for your grandma or somebody else who's going to watch this one. Patriots-Jaguars in London. 3rd consecutive game in London this season, 3rd consecutive week. Patriots Jaguars. This is the second of 2 games the Jaguars are playing in London. Obviously, last week with the Bears, we mentioned that previously. That's going to be a toilet bowl. No one's going to watch that game except for those over in London who are attending there in Wembley Stadium. My number 5 on this list, Texans Packers. An interesting one in Lambeau between Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud. 5-1 Texans, 4-2 Packers. Can the Texans keep winning these close games, finding different ways to win as they are doing without C.J. Stroud playing up to what he did last year as a rookie? Joe Mixon being out has hurt him, and obviously Nico Collins on IR right now is also a big blow, but Tank Dell stepping up for the Texans. On the other side, Jordan Love with Romeo Doubs, with Christian Watson coming back from injury. Can they continue to establish themselves in the elites of the NFC? Number 4 on my list, and I know this is going to be low, Ben, Lions-Vikings. This is a great game. Number 4 on the list, but great game. Lions-Vikings, Goff versus Darnold there in the Minneapolis U.S. Bank Stadium. This is the best 1 o'clock game on the slate, in my opinion. Can't wait for this game. This is going to be an epic matchup. 2 head-to-head divisional teams who know each other quite well. This is going to be a lot of points, a lot of scoring. I just can't wait to see how this one folds out. Number 3 on the list, Ravens Buccaneers, Monday Night Football down in Tampa. Lamar Jackson versus Baker Mayfield. Lamar Jackson now 23-1 against the NFC. Absolutely ridiculous stat. I know. He just doesn't lose to the NFC, and when he does, it's shocking because he's only lost once. So
it's a solar eclipse. It's a very, very rare occurrence.
Yeah, doubleheader in Monday Night Football. So that's one of 2 games on Monday Night Football this week. So don't forget to watch Chargers-Cardinals for the second game as you're watching Ravens-Bucks. But Chargers-Cardinals not on my list. That's just me saying there's a doubleheader for Monday Night Football. Number 2 on this list, yes, I'm going to go there, Jets-Steelers. Devontae Adams against the Steelers in a Jets uniform. Aaron Rodgers throwing him passes. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, which one are we going to see on Sunday Night Football against the New York Jets? And then my number 1 needs no introduction. Super Bowl rematch, Chiefs, 49ers in Levi Stadium. Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes, Taylor Swift versus I don't know who maybe Christian McCaffrey, because he's currently the celebrity of the 49ers who's not playing right now. He will be watching the game. So Andy Reid versus Kyle Shanahan. That game is going to be epic. I think it's going to be another high-scoring game as it was in the Super Bowl, and which defense is going to blink first. So that is my top 5 games to watch in week number 7.
I do not have a toilet bowl game. I do love that I will have a toilet bowl game, next week, but I do not have one today. But I do like the one you picked. The Jaguars overseas. The people don't want to see y'all in the States. They sure don't want to see y'all overseas, but we're going to have to deal with that nonsense. My number 5, I think, was your number 2, Jets Steelers. Look, Devontae Adams coming over to the Jets. He got what he wanted. His best years was when he was with Green Bay. Right now, he gets reunited, and it feels so good for him. And when AA run Rodgers, we'll see what happens with the Jets and the Steelers. My number 4, Ravens Bucks. Look, the thing about Lamar Jackson, the fact that he's only lost 1 time to the NFC lets you know that, listen, man, if it ain't the AFC, I ain't worried about y'all. Baker Mayfield, I'm looking forward to see Mike Evans going up against Marlon Humphrey. That vaunted Vita Vea gonna be chasing Lamar Jackson all game. It should be a good one. My number 3 is your number 1. Super Bowl rematch, Chiefs 49ers. This is either gonna be real good or much to do about nothing. And I say that to say this. George Kittle going to have to find a way to deal with him. Travis Kelce going to find a way to deal with him. You don't got Christian McCaffrey. It's going to be rough. Brian Ayuk. They find a way to get it done. But here's the thing, Chris Jones, stud D lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs. Who's going to block him? Who's going to block him on San Francisco? I don't know. That's going to be a daunting task. I hope that Brock Purdy is up to the task for this reason. The last time we saw Brock Purdy against the Chiefs, they took him off the field because it was 4th down. 4th and goal, by the way. They kick the field goal. Patrick Mahomes comes in, takes the ball down the field, and the rest is history. But I am looking forward to it. My number 2, Texans, Packers. Look, everybody wants to talk about C.J. Stroud. No one is really talking about Jordan Love, and you should. Jordan Love is a good player. Jordan Love has dealt with that injury scare the first game of the year. got his money in the offseason. I think he's getting married. Congratulations on that. But I think you got two up-and-comers. I mean, C.J. Stroud was obviously going to be in the MVP conversation because of how he's playing and what he means, not just to his team, but could be potentially be one of the face of the league. Jordan Love, first year starting in 2023, no Aaron Rodgers, went to the playoffs. Ask Dallas Cowboys how good he is, even though beating Dallas Cowboys ain't really nothing to write home about these days. Should be a really, really good game. My number one, Vikings, Lions. Look, Sam Darnold is the feel-good story. He's up for comeback player of the year right now. Excuse me, dealing with a little cold. The Lions, Smitty, is this. They have a nice culture and locker room, but somebody, I'm trying to think who it was. George Pickens, receiver for the Steelers. He called St. Brown for the Lions. He called him a slot merchant, saying he don't really do nothing. He's in the slot. Pickens. You call a first-team All-Pro a slot merchant? Wes Welker would beg to differ about being called a slot merchant, right? Steve Smith Sr., once he no longer separated outside, became a beast in the slot. Hines Ward would have something to say about being called a slot merchant, right? Julian Edelman would have something to say. Because if I know where the ball's going, well, most of the time, 80% is going in between the hats and the numbers. You call that man a slot merchant. Well, he got his money in the offseason. He was the first-team All-Pro. I'm not saying you ain't entitled to your opinion. I'm just saying don't be disrespectful to what that man does. But it should be fireworks because that Detroit defense is going to be without Aiden Hutchinson. That Vikings defense doesn't give enough credit for how well Harrison Smith is still making plays for the Vikings. Harrison Smith been with the Vikings like 30 years, and he's still out there getting it done. But, yes, I am looking for Lions, Vikings, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, former number 1 overall pick, former number 3. I want to say overall pick is Sam Darnold. It should be fireworks. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and one injury I forgot to bring up as we transition out of this episode of Winning the Division. Jonathan Allen expected to be potentially out for the season for the Washington Commanders.
That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt.
They're playing very, very well, and that's a big loss for the Commanders. Jonathan Allen, former Alabama star, has been sensational for them this year.
Hey, that's going to hurt. Jonathan Allen's been rock solid coming out of Alabama. First, him with Arden Payne, both. I think both. I want to say both of the Commanders starting interior defensive linemen are both playing at Alabama. Jonathan Allen been a key cog in that not just that Commanders defense, but that Commanders team. And so if you don't know who Jonathan Allen is, just type in Jonathan Allen interview, post-game interview, when he got the wave cap on and the sunglasses on. It is one of the greatest interviews you would ever see, but that is going to hurt the Commanders, a team that's definitely looking to not only contend in the NFC East, potentially win the NFC East. We'll see what happens.
Before we go out the door, is there any news of note that you wanted to bring up to our listeners before we end, and I'll sign us off? Anything that you wanted to bring up from Week 7 coming up that we did not talk about? Anything else you wanted to bring to our listeners' attention?
Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, I think he threatened a local reporter or radio host. I don't agree with that sentiment. It's nonsensical because Jerry Jones, people's job is to ask you questions. What you consider disrespectful, the Dallas Cowboys, once again, good, big brand, bad product. Big brand, bad product. But whenever you start using your power, money, notoriety, and influence to try to hurt other people's jobs and livelihood, I don't respect that. I don't respect that one bit. Too much is given, much is required. Your team doesn't win. So if you want to get favorable coverage, go to the country club. Invite people to your mansion. Invite people to your 100-foot yacht. I want to ask what is going on with Dak, with CD, with Zeke. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hear all that other nonsense talking about, hey, man, you want to ask me something else? If you want favorable coverage, invite your friends over. We ain't your friends in the media. We are the bridge between you and the fans, and we're gonna ask the questions that the fans want to know, need to know, should want to know. So shout out to that gentleman, whoever you are, man. Do not be bullied by a billionaire If he want favorable coverage, man, only interview, talk to Stephen Jones. But to me, that just stood out to me. I don't like that kind of stuff. We have tremendous platforms, tremendous opportunities. Smitty, even like I say, Jeremy Fowler. You know what, Jeremy? And listen, appreciate Jeremy Fowler taking the time to come on, win the division. What Jeremy Fowler proved and validated for you and me, Smitty, is people are watching. And not only are they watching, they are the ones that cover the league, paid by ESPN Sports Center. So, hey, man, Jeremy Fowler, man, appreciate you taking the time. And whenever you want to come through, Jeremy, just highlight us. You want to break some news? You can break it right home, win the division, where you either in the division or you win the division. And on one of these shows, we're going to break down our ingredients to win the division, because he is a Panthers fan, Smitty. I'm a Falcons fan. And, I don't know if either one of us got the winning recipe at all. But, hey, man, Jeremy Fowler, I appreciate you coming through. So Florida is coming through in a big way today. And like I said, I didn't go into my Florida Gators because that would have been a whole other episode.
Yeah. Well, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Find us on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube page at youtube.com/Tobacco Radio. You can find us wherever you get your podcast on the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, also the Fans First Network as well. I'm Ryan Smith. He is Ben Troupe. This has been Winning the Division, episode number 8, and we will see you next time.